We're live. Okay. So the talks we've been having this whole month, based on the freedom factor, are completely based on Ernest Holmes' quote from his Science of Mind book. Freedom is the birthright of every living soul. Our inherent nature is forever seeking to express itself in terms of freedom. We do well to listen to this inner voice, for it tells us of a life wonderful in its scope and a love beyond our fondest dreams, of a freedom which the soul craves. So we're going to take that apart a little bit today. And what is that inner voice? It is our spiritual intelligence. We've heard of all the other intelligence, but there is emotional intelligence. There is spiritual intelligence. It is the intelligence of spirit moving in and through and as us, and as we align with it, we can feel it. We are guided by it, and it is so wonderful in its scope. It's beyond what we can ever imagine, and it takes the form of wisdom. And today, we are going to look at what wisdom truly is. What is wisdom? So the Jewish Torah reads, "Happy and free are those who find wisdom. She is more precious than jewels. And nothing you desire can compare to her. Her paths are a way of pleasantness, and all her paths are peace. Get wisdom, get insight, do not forget." Do not forget this then. So what, we're going to break that down. What is wisdom? Let me first kind of go over what wisdom is not. And it's not simply the human intelligence or knowledge, what we know. Human intelligence is the ability to learn and to think clearly and logically. It's the ability to consider complex issues. They are important capacities, of course, but wisdom is so much more than that. It's so much more than that. And Taoism is very clear when it says to us, he who is learned is not wise. Not wise. Our world is awash with information, and we are overloaded with data coming at us at warped speed, it feels like, because it is. It's a different dimension, yeah? We're in a whole different dimension. That's another talk. That's the workshop today. So each day there are new discoveries, and a single newspaper today, we can get more information than someone that lived hundreds of years ago would get in a lifetime. We get it all in like one. I read it on the. I just say I don't watch the news. I don't really buy newspapers, but it's on my phone. So now I'm reading the news again on my phone. It's there. There's so much, and if you ever look on your thread on your phone, it like never ends. I've never gotten to the end. And you go down rabbit holes, right? Because one story will take you here. Anyway, it's so much is my point. It's just so much. Yet something is missing. We have all this knowledge, plenty of it. But wisdom, that's a whole nother thing. It's another story. A mere glance at the extent of suffering and pain in this world makes it painfully clear that wisdom is what we desperately need the most. Wisdom is essential not only for sane lives and societies, but also for spiritual awakening. We can't spiritually awake, and that's the thing, by the way, if you're not on that same pathway, which I think most of us here are, but maybe in video land, it's a thing, spiritual awakening. You can't get it by accumulating facts and reading more books. It's something that seeps into you. It's that inner knowing, that wisdom within. So what is the difference between knowledge and wisdom? Knowledge is the acquisition of information. Wisdom is understanding it. Knowledge informs us. Wisdom transforms us. Knowledge is something we have, and wisdom is something that we become. Knowledge is expressed in words. Wisdom expressed in our lives. In our lives. Knowledge empowers. Wisdom empowers and transforms. And transforms. And that's the part. The transformation is in the wisdom. In fact, Buddhism claims one momentary glimpse of divine wisdom born of meditation is more precious than any amount of knowledge. Gaining wisdom for us in our practices that runs through, it does run through all of the great religions. It's all over the Bible. So what is wisdom and how do we awaken to it? Dictionary definition, because we always go to the dictionary for a definition. Understanding what is true, right, and or lasting. And here's a wonderful definition of wisdom. Deep understanding and practical skill in the central issues of our life. When we think of biblical figures who have wisdom, we might think, immediately, we might think of Solomon. Right? It says the wisdom of King Solomon. So, King Solomon asked God to bless him with wisdom. Not for riches or a long life or victory over his enemies. He asked for wisdom on how to rule his people. And we probably might have heard the incredible story of the two women who were in a heated dispute over a baby. And here's what the scripture says this. Now, two women who were harlots, because in the Bible you're either a harlot or a virgin. There's no other women. So two, that's not in the Bible, who were harlots, came to the king and stood before him. And one woman said, "Oh, my Lord, this woman and I dwell in the same house. And I gave birth, while 3 days later she also gave birth. And we were together. No one was in the house but us, except the two of us. And the woman's son, the baby, died that night because she lay on him. So she arose in the middle of the night and took my son from my side while my maidservant slept and laid him in her bosom and laid her dead child upon my bosom. And when I arose in the morning to nurse my son, there he was, dead. But when I examined him, indeed I saw that he was not my son, whom I had given birth to. But then the other woman said, no, but the living one is mine. It's my son, and the dead one is yours." So the Bible is so full of such interesting stories, truly. Thus they spoke before the king. Then the king said, "Bring me a sword." So they brought a sword to the king. And the king then said, "Divide the living child in two, and I'll give half to one and half to the other." Then the woman whose son was living spoke to the king, for she yearned for compassion for her son. And she said, "Oh, my lord, give her the living child, and by no means kill him." The other one said, "Let him be divided in half, and she will have half, and I will have half." So the king answered and said, "Give the first woman the living child, and by no means kill him. She is the mother." And that is wisdom. That is wisdom. And here's an interesting aside. In 1 Kings, where the story is related, we learn that because Solomon asked for wisdom, he got everything else. And it's kind of like when we hear the phrase, seek ye first the kingdom, all things shall be added unto you. It is when we first seek the kingdom of wisdom. It's wisdom. All things then, if we're wise in all of our decisions in life, then things just naturally gravitate to us because there's this inner wisdom that is activated. It is our divine guiding us, leading us. So how do we awake to the wisdom in us? First, we must prepare ourselves for this wisdom. And second, we must turn to the sources of wisdom. Prepare for wisdom. We must open to it. Just as Solomon was open to it, the importance of being open to receive wisdom is beautifully portrayed in a classic Zen story about the meeting of a knowledgeable professor and a Zen master. I have another story for you. The professor introduced himself to the Zen master and announced that he would like to learn about Zen. The professor introduced himself and announced that he would like to learn. And the Zen master said, very good, very good. Please come in. After they were seated, the Zen master began by speaking about the vital importance of ethical living. Yes, yes, interrupted the professor. Ethics is a fascinating topic, isn't it? I've studied several branches of it. In fact, I actually wrote a book about it. And he gathered speed and launched into a lecture on the various theories of ethics. Ah, I see, said the Zen master. When at last the professor stopped to draw a breath, in Zen, the master continued, the correct motivation for saying or doing anything is very important, so we try to say only what is truly helpful. Well, said the professor, there are several theories which hold that view. However, I must say that I find the flaw in each one of them. And he promptly delivered a long lecture on the different theories of motivation. I see, said the Zen master. When finally the professor paused for a moment, he asked him if he would like some tea. Why, yes, thank you, said the professor. The Zen master smiled and poured the professor his cup, and he poured it, and it was full, and then it overflowed into the saucer and filled that. And he continued pouring while the tea ran over the table, and only when this hot tea landed in the professor's lap did he say, oh, you were waiting for this? He was stunned into silence. But when the tea really hit him and burned his legs, he said, stop! Can't you see the cup is full? It can't take any more. Why, yes, I see that, said the Zen master. And can't you see that your mind is completely full of old ideas, that you cannot take in any new ones? Therefore, you cannot possibly learn about Zen. If we are locked with all of these beliefs, which we are, and all of this stuff in our head that we're not a little bit open to receive the new, it cannot get in. The wisdom cannot get in. One Christian text recommends the following reflection as a means of releasing old concepts and opening to the sacred. So listen to this as I read it slowly. I'll read this slowly for you. This is for the healing effects of wisdom in our lives. Let us be still an instant and forget all the things we've ever learned, all the thoughts we've had, and every perception that we hold of what things mean and what their purpose is. Let us remember not our ideas of what the world is for. Simply do this. Be still. Lay aside all thoughts of what you are and what God is. All concepts you have learned about the world. All images you hold about yourself. Do not bring with you one thought of the past that has been taught. Not one belief you've ever learned before from anything at all. Let the world, forget this world and forget this course, and come with holy, empty hands unto your God. And that's from Essential Spirituality. So the second part is to awaken to the wisdom. And that is turning to sources of wisdom. Once we ready ourselves, where do we find this wisdom? Eventually, everywhere. It's everywhere, in all things, in every person, in every experience, in all of life. We can gain the wisdom if we have a little bit of openness in our mind, not like the professor that is constantly knowing all the answers. Yet, although it is possible for all people and all things and all religions, they always recommend these same sources. And I want to look at 2 of the 5 sources, this pretty much inherent in all religions. But I'll tell you all 5 because you're going to be wondering what the 5 are when I just tell you the 2. So I'm going to tell you all 5 real quick. So the first one is wisdom can be found in nature, in silence and solitude, from the wise, in ourselves, from reflecting on the nature of life and death. So the 2 that I pick are the first one is from the wise, and the second one is from within ourselves. So from the wise, we can gain wisdom from spiritual reading. I used to read, and I know anyone that's taking foundation class, I used to read that book from Ernest Holmes. I didn't know a word I was reading, but I could feel the energy of what was coming through. It's like Emma Curtis Hopkins can't understand a very little of this woman writes, or which she writes, but I can feel the vibration from the words on the page. It's like reading the Torah. It's the vibration from the words. That's the wisdom. Read and reflect. Reflect. Never speed read. The second part of that is take classes. As it was said, we're offering such a powerful class, the Foundations of Science of Mind and Spiritual Living, in which we truly learn the creative process. We take Ernest Holmes' words and we really get into them, and we understand how we create. Not just words, but how we actually create. The third is recognize our teachers and their gifts. D, that's the fourth. Seek the company of the wise. Surround yourself with wise people. Join an empowerment group, a mastermind group. Come to Joyful Gathering. There's a lot of wise people in here, that's for sure. Or even in your profession, learn from those who are a little bit ahead of you. And Jack Canfield tells a great story of speaking with Tony Robbins. That was his friend once. He said, "What is it, Tony? Why is it that you and I both do the same things? We write books, we lecture, we counsel and coach people. We do the same thing, but you make so much more money than I do." True. And Canfield said, what is the amount of money of the people, the 5 people that most surround you? And Canfield said, the same as I make. And Robin said, that is your problem, right there. I hang out, my 5 closest friends all make much more than I do. And I remember in our Prosperity Plus class, which we teach often here, Mary Morrissey, who just happened to have Jack Canfield as her mentor, talks about that. And a lot of people are like, oh, I don't like that. It's like, your 5 closest friends, let them make more, be more than you are. And that way you can expand. There's room to expand even more. It's the same with wisdom as it is with money. So, the second source is from ourselves. How do we learn from ourselves? Do you know how brilliant we truly are? Each and every one of us, we have the solution for every single experience, problem, question that we ask. We have it within us, but we don't tap into that innate wisdom, that brilliance that is the truth of who we are. If you just breathe and allow yourself to receive it, you will. All questions are answered in deep reflection when you're in meditation, when you open up to the brilliance, your brilliance, that's connected with the infinite oneness of all that is. An Islamic sage once said, self-knowledge is the shortest road to the knowledge of God. Lezu wrote, knowledge studies others, wisdom studies self. So it's all within us. But we don't really recognize that. How many times do we just keep taking classes and going to lectures and going to Charmin and going to all these different avenues to discover ourselves? But we're already there. We're whole, complete, and perfect. Ernest Holmes tells us that if we're already whole, complete, and perfect, no one else can add to it. They can expand our vision, but we have to be open and know that we have that within us, within. We don't have to force it. Do you think there was ever a second before King Solomon said, let's cut the baby in half, that he knew he was going to say it? He did not, but he had prayed for wisdom. And so wisdom showed up in every area of his life when he needed it. So right now, to end this talk, we're going to go into a very short prayer for wisdom, for all of us to acknowledge it, to wake up to it, to connect with it. And so we just take that deep breath together. And we open up to the infinite power of the oneness of the light of God, this light energy that flows and moves through all of life. It is the brilliance of the innate wisdom. It is wise in all of its creation. It is the brilliance of God that shines through all life, that creates more and more and more. There is no end to the creation of the divine. And it creates out of the only thing it can, its own divine nature. So therefore, I know that since I am one with God and each and every person is one with God, that innate wisdom moves through each and every one of us. There are no problems that do not have solutions. There is nowhere we can go on this path in life when we pray for wisdom, when we open up for that wisdom, that we will make any kind of error in our thinking. We are wise, brilliant beings of the light. That is who we truly are. That is who we are. And when we shed these physical forms, we will be one with that light of the divine. And so I give thanks for knowing that the wisdom of God is alive in each and every person. I give such gratitude to know that we are brilliant beings, each one a brilliant being. And we love the brilliance of who we are. And in that gratitude then, in that absolute knowing that the words I speak are absolute truth, I release this word into the power and activity of the law of divine mind, where I know this word cannot return void. It is made manifest in each one's life. from this moment forward. And so it is.
And so it is.